Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Um, and just like they do on a plane, when you board a plane, they always remind you of where the plane is going, what the flight number is, and what the destination is, just in case you got on the wrong plane. And since we just had a slide that said that ACI 16 was about to start with Tim Lowenhaupt, I just want to let you know that you are here today with Venerable Utpala, and we are going to start ACI Foundation Course 2 on Buddhist refuge. So just to make sure you're on the right plane. So before we get started, on the course material, there's something that I um, have to read for you from ACI, just to get us all familiar with Asian Classics Institute courses. So I am a certified ACI teacher, and I'm not a religious figure, such as a lama or a priest, and no such relationship is implied between us at an ACI program. So it is your right as a student to engage in a religious relationship with any person if you choose to do so, according to the laws of the country in which you are a citizen. And while I am a fully ordained nun in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, ACI itself and the ACI courses are not associated with any particular organized religion, including Buddhism. As is customary for my religion, I will lead verbal recitation of Buddhist prayers before and after class. And I will do the mudras, the hand gestures associated with those prayers. As an ACI student, you are not expected or required to participate in those prayers or gestures. And you are most welcome to join me if you wish. Now, Asian Classics Institute respects policies of all governments. For this reason, ACI cannot accept any registrations for online programs from people who live in places where ACI is not permitted. For example, ACI teachings are not permitted within mainland China. ACI also blocks Zoom access to and from mainland China for this reason, to respect their laws. ACI also does not endorse any efforts made to circumvent any government policies, such as using VPNs. ACI highly discourages anyone from trying to do so, as this may put you in danger. If ACI discovers that you are using that kind of a technology, ACI will remove you from the Zoom call. Respecting government policies and laws helps protect students and teachers everywhere. More generally, ACI requires me as a certified ACI teacher to ensure that I am not violating the laws of the country of any student who attends classes with me. So, due to the nature of these kind of classes online, I personally do not know who is attending my teachings, much less which country you come from. So I ask you to please assist me. If the laws of your country or region allow you participation in ACI classes, and also regulate in any way the expression of religious beliefs, please reach out to me personally. I need to understand and get copies of the laws so I can be sure to follow them. And you can reach me here. One more thing about the Tibetan language. So I've been a student of these teachings in the lineage of Tsongkhapa since 1995. And I endeavor to pass them along as they were taught to me. So the vast majority of the teachers that I've studied with have shared concepts using the Tibetan language. I'm also studying to learn to be a translator of Tibetan texts into English since 2017. Since the most comprehensive collection of the Buddhist teachings that exist on this planet are in the Tibetan language, and since the language itself is at a very high risk for disappearing from this planet because it's not spoken so much anymore, I will continue with the tradition of sharing the Tibetan language with you. And my motivation is to keep this language alive so that the precious teachings are not lost. I may ask you, I will say Tibetan words and phrases and explain their meaning. I may ask you to repeat some words and phrases, and you are free to engage or not. I may implore you to do so, but you still don't have to. And I'm not trying to like force you into learning Tibetan. Just, like in my own experience, when I first went to classes like 31 years ago, and I would hear these words and I had no idea, I didn't know what they were. They were just sounds. But I started, after a little while, I started copying the shape of the Tibetan script in my notes. And I look at those notes now and they're illegible. I did not do a very good job. But the thing is, I was planting seeds, or my teachers were planting seeds, for me to have an interest in and desire to learn this language. So you can just keep that in mind. Okay. So as I said at the outset, we're doing ACI Foundation Level 2, which is on Buddhist refuge. And the tradition in Buddhist teachings is to start and end a class with prayers. At the beginning, we're taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, or generating the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, all living beings. And we do that because the karma we create, the energy that we're creating for ourselves, we want to make it as powerful as possible because we're going to spend like an hour and a half together uh, talking about these concepts that if we practice them can lead us out of a cycle of suffering and lead us to experience being in a completely blissful and awakened state of mind as a Buddha. This is possible. And so if we make our motivation strong at the beginning, it will help us create more powerful seeds, plant more powerful seeds in our minds. After we do the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, bodhicitta is the wish, then we do a prayer that's called the mandala offering. And this is a tradition that Buddhists, that the Buddha did not start teaching the Dharma until he had been asked multiple times. So the tradition for especially monastics is to not teach unless there has been this sort of request. And the mandala offering is that request. So that's what gets us started at the beginning of a class. And then at the end, we do a dedication prayer. So again, thinking about karma and how to make our actions the most powerful that we can, how to plant the most powerful seeds. At the end of doing a virtuous activity, and you can do this at any time of the day, anytime you catch yourself doing something good, dedicate that towards your own future enlightenment so that you can reach a state where you can benefit others. So we recite these prayers, and it may get to a point where you think they're just words, they're just sounds, and they are just words and sounds. It's what we hold in mind as we say these words and sounds that make them powerful. So I invite you to join me. So this is the refuge prayer. And you'll find this document that has the prayers in it on the platform if you're interested. So before we do the prayer, think of your own personal, individual motivation for being here right now, for signing up to take this course. Why are you here? What are you hoping to learn? And why do you want to learn it? How will you put it to use, what you learn here? Sangye churan soki chuknam la changchu partu dakni kyapsu chi daki chishe gipe sunam ki Chola Penchir Sangye Juparsho Sangye Chirang Soki Chaknam La Changchu Partu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Cheshe Kipe Sunam Ki Drola Pinchir Sangye Juparsho Sangye Churang Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Chishe Kipe Sunam Ki Drola Pinchir Sangye Juparsho. Sashi Puki Jushin Meto Tram Rira Lingshi Ninde Kempati Sangye Shindu Mikte Owarki Jokun Namdak Shingla Chuparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnirya Tayami. Okay, so here we go. This course is on the on Buddhist refuge, and it is in the first level of what's known as the perfection of wisdom. And if you've taken classes with me that I was teaching last year, we've talked about perfection of wisdom before. But if you haven't, this is where in the series of courses, when Geshe Michael taught this course series, this is where he was introducing this idea of the perfection of wisdom. So I'll just give you a short overview of the course. The first week were today and Friday, or what is Friday for me. I think it's Friday for all of us. Anyway, the first week is about kinds of refuge, according to the Madhyamika textbooks, or the consequence branch of the middle way. So what is refuge? What is going for refuge? It's a very important subject. It's what makes a person a Buddhist. If you have refuge, you're a Buddhist. And if you don't, you're not. So it's like the litmus test of a Buddhist. And it's not the verbal refuge, as I said. It's the mental attitude of refuge. The second week, we will get into bodhicitta, or the wish for enlightenment. And we'll learn a lot about it. There's very detailed information. We're going to be studying from what is actually a monastic textbook. Week 3 is what is nirvana. And that is a word I'm not sure about in your culture, but in my culture, which is not Buddhist, the word nirvana has made it into our common language. But people have very weird and not quite correct ideas about what nirvana is. Your culture may be more, having, if you come from a culture that is Buddhist, then you most likely have a good idea about what nirvana means. But we're going to talk about that. Make sure we're all on the same page. And then we're going to talk about, in week 4, proofs of emptiness. We're going to talk about, oops, I didn't open up share my Tibetan. We're going to talk about Chikdudrel. And Chikdudrel, that's one of the proofs for emptiness. It means the one or many proof. And it's very interesting. And emptiness is another word or idea that it's made it into our language, at least in my country, but it's not well understood. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to also talk about who is Maitreya. This is a favorite topic of Geshe Michael's because it was his pre-Geshe debate. Geshe is like like if you think about a university system, a Geshe would be like a PhD or something. After, a decade or more of study. So who is Maitreya? It's one of the only places in the open teachings of Buddhism where the secret teachings or the Diamond Way teachings are justified. And the reason and how they work, how the secret teachings work, the reason for the secret teachings is explained in terms of the open teachings. So that's very exciting, especially with those of you who are also students of Geshe Michael and are interested. He's leading us into teachings on the Diamond Way. And then week 6 is the ending. Is that week 6? No, we only have 5 weeks together. Geshe Michael used to hold one last class where he would go over all the information that he had done in the previous 10 classes. We're only going to do 10 classes. But after we finish, then you can do your final exam. Okay, so we talked about the prayers. Now let's talk about the source of the material for this course. So that the subject is the perfection of wisdom. And the perfection of wisdom was originally taught by the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, 2,500 years ago or so. So about 500 BC in India. And it's one group of sutras that he taught. So the word sutra means, it can mean different things, but generally speaking, sutra is a teaching of the Buddha, an open teaching not a secret teaching or not a diamond way teaching. So he taught the Sanskrit word for perfection of wisdom is prajna paramita. So he taught that when he was alive. He taught for about 50 years or so, and we have very few of the sutras left that the Buddha taught, because the Buddha was an oral teacher and he did not publish books. So students didn't write notes either. And everything was passed down orally for hundreds of years. And before people started writing them down, like, let's write this down so we don't forget. Fortunately for us, those who first wrote these teachings or these words of the Buddha down were far more advanced than I am. They had very good memories and very precise memories, and so they were able to capture the words of the Buddha. Okay, so the books that we have, the main books that we have regarding the perfection of wisdom are known as Gendring Dusu. So if you would like, please say Gendring Dusu. Gendring Dusu. So Gie means long. Jing means middling or halfway between long and short. And de, as you might imagine, means short. So we've got long, medium, and short, and sum means 3. So they're just known as the 3, long, medium, and short. The long one, the long sutra on the perfection of wisdom, has something like 100,000 verses. And that's called Tongchok Gyapa. The middling length sutra on the perfection of wisdom has 20,000 verses. That one's called Nitri. And then the short sutra on the perfection of wisdom is called Ge Tongpa. Ge Tongpa. And that means 8,000 verses. So 8,000, 20,000, and 100,000 verses. And when they say verse, remember they're talking about Sanskrit. And then when it gets translated into Tibetan, it's a different number of lines. But suffice it to say, those are lines, not verses. And these are interesting sutras. They're not like most philosophical literature. Some of them have descriptions of meditation, and what people did to generate wisdom in their minds. There's a story in one of these sutras by about a bodhisattva called Bodhisattva Ever Weeping. He couldn't stop crying. That was his name, Taktu Mu, Ever Weeping. And how he went to find his teacher, and what he went through to try and find his teacher. And he's crying. He was crying not because of his deep love for living beings, which he probably had, but he's crying because he was trying to sell parts of his body in a market to raise money to offer his teacher so that he could learn the perfection of wisdom. And demons blocked his voice. So he's screaming, legs for sale. But no one can hear him because the demons blocked his voice. So he's crying out of frustration. But what this shows us is that these teachings were so important. He found them to be so important that he was willing to give up his own body in order to get them. So these are three of the great books that we have left about the perfection of wisdom. And they're in the part of the Tibetan Buddhist canon called the Kangyur, Ka, the word. So it's the word of the Buddha. Now the sutras are very cryptic, and so we as the teachings were passed on, then people in later times wrote commentaries on these sutras, on these words of the Buddha. And the commentaries they help us understand, they fill in information. So the first commentary in our list of sources is called the Jewel of Realizations. And sometimes you see this, I think even in your answer key, it's listed as the Ornament of Realizations. That's the way that Geshe Michael translated the title of the text how many years ago? Over 30 years ago. But now he translates it as Jewel of Realizations. So anyway, the Jewel of Realizations was taught by Maitreya, Lord Maitreya, Jetsun Jampa in Tibetan. And Maitreya, as I said earlier, is someone that we're going to study in the last week of this course. But he is sometimes called the future Buddha. He's the next Buddha who will come to this planet. So we don't say that there's just one Buddha. Each living being has the potential to become a Buddha. They're very rare. So unfortunately, we have to wait a while for the next one. It most likely won't be in our lifetime, but hopefully in the future, not too far in the future lifetime. So right now, Lord Maitreya is as a high level bodhisattva. At very high levels, bodhisattvas reside in Buddha paradises as they attend another Buddha. So right now, Maitreya is living in a paradise as a bodhisattva. Say some. Some say he's already enlightened. There's a big debate, which we're going to get to. But anyway, Maitreya taught this book to Arya Asanga, probably before Asanga became an Arya, but we'll get into that, what that means later on. And in Tibetan, Asanga's name is Pakpa Tokme. And so Asanga, he lived around 350 current era. And his mother was a nun. And if nuns have a vow of celibacy. So how is that possible? The woman, the nun, who would become his mother, had a vision that if she married a king, that they would have 2 children, and those 2 children would be very important to the Buddhist teachings in the world. And so even though she had no desire for sex or anything like that, she had no desire to give up her robes, she did for the benefit of others. So she gave up her robes and she married a king, and they had 2 children. One was Vasubandhu, and he wrote a book called the Abhidharma Kosha, which, if you studied with me last year, we did some study of that text. It's one of the first comprehensive overviews of Buddhist thought. And then the other child was Asanga. And Asanga wrote 5 of the most famous books in Buddhism. And then the 2 of them together also were the founders of what's known as the mind-only school of Buddhism. So Asanga, how he used to meet Maitreya, like in person. Maitreya would come to him, like in his meditation, and then he actually went to Maitreya's paradise, sat at his knee. Maitreya taught him, and he wrote down what Maitreya taught him in 5 different books. So one of these books is the book that's a commentary on the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, called the Jewel of Realizations. If just to say here, Yum in Tibetan means mother. You may have heard the phrase Yabyum, which is it's used to talk about spiritual partners, like a holy husband, holy wife. Yum is the female, is the wife, the mother. And these perfection of wisdom sutras, they're called the mother. They're called Yum because these books, these teachings, gave birth to the Buddha. In other words, if we learn, study, and practice these teachings, we can become fully enlightened. These teachings then would be like our mother of ourself as a Buddha. So this text by Maitreya, this is it in Tibetan, Tokyen. You may have more commonly heard Abhisamaya Alankara. It's very challenging. Not as challenging as the sutras, but challenging nonetheless. So we go to another commentary. And this commentary is by Haribhadra. In Tibetan, his name is Lopen Sengye Sangpo, the pure lion. And he wrote a book called Drapa Dunsel, which just means clarification of the meaning. Clarification of the meaning. He lived around 775 current era. And just a little note here that your answer key says 850 AD, but apparently some research was done over these intervening years. We now, like in our bibliographies, when we include text by Haribhadra, we say that he lived around 775 AD. But, still it's like nearly 300 years after, or a little over 300 years after Asanga. So he's also Indian. He wrote in Sanskrit. And this book is also too hard for us to study. So we need a commentary on that. So Je Tsongkhapa wrote a commentary on the Jewel of Realizations. But we're not going to study that because that also is too difficult. Je Tsongkhapa can be very difficult. So instead, we're going to study, we use as a source Parchen Tachu, which means analysis of the perfection of wisdom. And this was written by Kejub Tempa Darge. And he was a scholar and a monastic, and he wrote many of the texts. He was of the same school that Geshe Michael was in, Sarah May. And he's an author who writes very clearly. So his commentary, he's commenting on Je Tsongkhapa's text, which we're not going to talk about, but it's called Lamche Ningpo again. He wrote a commentary on Je Tsongkhapa, who is writing a commentary on Haribhadra, who is writing a commentary on a Sangha, who is writing a commentary on the Buddha. So that's our lineage. This book, and by this book, we mean the Jewel of Realizations, it was taught to a Sangha by an enlightened being. So this book, the audience for that book are high-level bodhisattvas, great saints. And if you're anything like me, I'm not anywhere near high-level bodhisattva. And so for me, I just get to take a glimpse at it and hopefully have some sort of understanding as I glimpse. But this book is, all these books in this whole line are important because they're teaching emptiness, which is a challenging concept to understand. The Buddha, when he taught, at first he did not speak about emptiness because the people who were around him then couldn't have understood it. So these are difficult concepts. It takes time. It takes thinking. It takes training. If we don't understand it well, we won't be able to see emptiness directly, which is what we need to do if we want to get out of suffering. We need to see how things really are directly in order to break the chain, the cycle of being born again and again into a suffering bag of bones. Only through understanding emptiness can we escape. There are other methods to get out of pain in the short term. We can do good deeds. We can love and care for other people as much as we can. And those plant seeds in our minds and hearts for positive future experiences. But in order to permanently stop suffering, we must understand this subject well. If we do, then when we go into meditation with this knowledge in our hearts, we will have incredible experiences. We will understand how things are after the direct perception of emptiness. We will meet a Buddha directly. We will perceive what are known as the four Arya truths, which include, as an example, perceiving our past lives directly in meditation. we will know that we have had past lives. We will perceive our future lives. We will know how many lives it will be before we become totally enlightened. The typical number of lives after having seen emptiness directly is 7. And they say, you know, that you will be born in a good family, that you will have access early in your life to teachers, that you will have good health, and so on and so forth. You know what your future lives will look like. You know what you will be called when you become fully enlightened. Right now, we don't even know. We don't know that we had a past life. We don't know that we'll have a future life. We can use reasoning. Logically, we can determine that we must have had past lives and that we will have future lives, but we don't know that. We don't have a direct experience of that. Unless you're a high being along the bodhisattva path, you know, you do reach states where you can see past and future. So anyway, one of the things that happens in this, they call this the third of the 3 paths, the path of seeing emptiness directly. We will see that we're not crazy. We will see that these teachings are correct. That the description of reality, the description of how it is that things work, why things work the way they do, why we have had the kind of experiences that we have had, how we can create different experiences, we'll know that that's all correct. So we can reach a state where we see this, but we need training. We can't do it without training. We have, all of us here together on this Zoom call, we've been doing this for millions of lifetimes, and probably a lot of them together since we're here together now. So we're still in training. So let's get on to the training part. That was the sort of the history. So perfection of wisdom. Sharab ki parautu chimpa. Please say Sharab ki paro tu chimpa. Sharab ki parautu chimpa, or Prajna Paramita in Sanskrit. So what is the perfection of wisdom? It's defined basically as the direct perception of emptiness linked with the wish to benefit all living beings, the wish to become enlightened in order to benefit all living beings. So the perfection of wisdom is the marriage of the direct perception of emptiness and bodhicitta, or the wish. So that is, Maitreya and the Buddha's definition of what the perfection of wisdom is. So this isn't, just some idea, some good idea that some recent author made up. This, we have our lineage going back 2,500 years to an enlightened being. So perfection of wisdom, the direct perception of emptiness under the influence of bodhicitta, or sometimes they say with a heart imbued with the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings. So why do we have to say like under the influence or imbued or influenced by? Because the mind can only hold one object at a time. We may think in our everyday life, and as we're sitting here, we think we're looking at a monitor and probably whatever else is in our room, different colors and shapes. We think that we're seeing a whole bunch of different things at the same time. But the mind moves at like 66, 67 instants per second. Images are going that quickly, like a film. If anyone goes to films that aren't digital anymore, they used to be on long strips of film in one individual picture after the other, and they moved in front of a light shining through them, and that created the illusion of movement and different things. So in a similar way, we only have one object at a time. And because this is happening so quickly, where our mind makes a story that we're looking at more than one thing at a time, or makes a story about things moving even. So anyway, that's why we have to say it's the direct perception of emptiness under the influence of bodhicitta, because both cannot be happening at the same time. The direct perception of emptiness, some describe it as chula chushokpa. Chula chushokpa. Like water poured into water. At the moment we are seeing emptiness directly, we have no experience of that we're sitting in meditation. We have no experience of like me. We have no experience of like having a body. We have no experience of any sensory inputs, no smells, no taste, no sounds, no physical sensations whatsoever, no other thoughts in our mind. Our mind is single pointed on emptiness, the absence of a self that comes from its own side. It's a mere absence. And our mind is at a state of mind that is completely focused, single pointed on that one thing. But our hearts, because we have we've developed this idea that we want to become enlightened in order to benefit other people. It's what drives us to do what we do as a bodhisattva. That's the motivating factor. It's what moves us to do anything, is this love of other living beings and wanting to help them. So prajna paramita. It's the combination of the highest possible motivation and the most profound, correct thing about our lives, about our experience. The Sanskrit is shunyata, or seeing emptiness directly. So, perfection of wisdom. The direct perception of emptiness, or shunyata, under the influence of bodhicitta. And then there's another phrase, in the mind of an Arya Bodhisattva. In the mind of an Arya Bodhisattva. So there's two parts to that, Bodhisattva and Arya. An Arya is a person who has seen emptiness directly in a deep state of meditation. So when you sit down to meditate, you're an ordinary being. You have a direct perception of emptiness, and then you become an entirely different kind of being. You become an Arya. You have become a person who is, they call it entering the stream. You will become enlightened. As I said earlier, you see how long it's going to be before you become enlightened. You know. So anyway, that's an Arya, is one who has seen emptiness directly in a deep state of meditation. It's not just perceiving emptiness or understanding emptiness. Perceiving emptiness, like right now, we're all having a perception of emptiness. Our minds are perceiving emptiness because that's what we're talking about. That is not a direct perception of emptiness. It's an intellectual perception of emptiness. So an Arya is one who has had a direct perception of emptiness in a deep state of meditation. A bodhisattva is a person who has this genuine desire to become enlightened as quickly as possible in order to help every existing living being on this planet, of this type of being, that type of being, animal, insect, human. There's other kinds of beings on this planet, on all different planets, all living beings. Is it possible to be an Arya and not be a Bodhisattva? Or the other way around? Is it possible to be a Bodhisattva and not be an Arya? You can reach a desire to help all living beings without having seen emptiness directly. So you can have that level of of love, basically, in your heart before the direct perception. The opposite can also happen. You can have a direct perception of emptiness and then later develop the wish. You could have a direct perception of emptiness and have that experience be so profound that even in that meditation, when you come out, the profundity of what you just saw could move you to generate this wish. So perfection of wisdom is the direct perception of emptiness influenced by bodhicitta in the mind of an Arya Bodhisattva. So someone who is both a Bodhisattva and an Arya. So just so there's no confusion, because sometimes there can be an arhat. An arhat is a person who they have seen emptiness directly, but they have reached nirvana. They have not reached total enlightenment. So they don't have the wish, basically. And it's someone who has seen emptiness directly, but they don't have the wish. They've used their experience of having seen emptiness directly to completely eliminate all negativities from their mind, all negative thoughts, all negative speech, all negative actions. They've become completely purified. An arhat has left the realm of samsara. They are no longer in the circle of suffering, but they are not completely enlightened. So that's an arhat. Now there's different ways to talk about the perfection of wisdom. And if you took courses with me last year, we've talked about some of them. Today we're going to talk about 3 levels of the perfection of wisdom. One level is called the path, the perfection of wisdom in the path. So that means path here means someone who's on the way. They're on the journey from being an ordinary person to being a total, completely enlightened being. So it's the perfection of wisdom in the mind of someone who's not yet a Buddha. The person is not perfect yet, but they saw emptiness directly and they have that love. So they're an Arya Bodhisattva who is not a Buddha yet. Hopefully not to confuse you, but all Buddhas are Arya Bodhisattvas, right? But not all Arya Bodhisattvas are Buddhas. Hopefully that makes sense. They're on the path. Those who are not yet Buddhas are on the path still. The second level is called perfection of wisdom of the result. And that is the perfection of wisdom in the mind of a Buddha, in the mind of a completely, totally enlightened being. This is the level we're trying to reach. And then the third level is called perfection of wisdom in books. So it's like those 3 sutras, for example, or Maitreya's book, or any of the other commentaries. It's the perfection of wisdom as shared in words. So we have 3 levels, right? Path, result, and books. But are books really the perfection of wisdom? Can we say that? What did I say 49 times that the perfection of wisdom was? It's the direct perception of emptiness influenced by the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all living beings in the mind of an Arya Bodhisattva. So no, books are not technically perfection of wisdom. Even the sutras are not technically the perfection of wisdom. They're called that because they give birth to the result perfection of wisdom. They give birth to fully enlightened beings. So the perfection of wisdom is mental. It's not a physical thing. It's of your mind, in your mind. The opening lines of Maitreya's book, I bow down to what makes Buddhas. I bow down to what makes Buddhas. Usually at the beginning of a Buddhist text, there will be some sort of obeisance or showing reverence to somebody. Usually it's a person, to the Buddha, to some bodhisattva, and it indicates like what the topic of the text is. But that book is special because I bow down to what makes Buddhas. I bow down to the mother of all Buddhas. So refuge. What does refuge mean? We're going to talk more about it in the future, but 2 things must be present in order for there to be taking refuge. And what is refuge? It's when we take refuge, excuse me, we're going for protection. We're turning to something or someone who can protect us. So one of the things that is necessary in order to take refuge is being scared, being frightened. Like as a child, we take refuge in our mother, right? When we're scared or we're hurt, we run to our mom. We run to someone who can protect us. And what is it we're scared about in taking Buddhist refuge? Is that we're fearful of suffering. We are fearful that we've created the causes for immense suffering in future lives. And we're stuck in this cycle of being born again and again, over and over, into suffering experiences. And in the previous classes, we talked about in more detail about suffering, which I can't do, even though I would like to, because we don't have infinite time. So we have this fear of suffering. That's one thing. The second thing is we run to mom because we think she can help. We think that she can provide us protection against what we fear. We think that she has the ability to protect us. We don't go running to, our brother or sister, unless they're the only one around. We want to run to mom. Mom is the protector. So with Buddhist refuge, we are running to that which can protect us from being in this cycle of suffering. Any refuge outside of Buddhist refuge, quite frankly, cannot protect us. Money can't protect us. Our mom, as much as she loves us, can't protect us. Police can't protect us. Friends can't protect us. Our partner can't protect us. The nature of suffering is such that we have created the experience of suffering that we have from our past actions and words and thoughts. The only one who can protect us from suffering is, and we're going to now jump to the 3 jewels. What are the 3 jewels? These are 3 things that Buddhists go to refuge to. So the 3 jewels are the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, and the Sangha jewel. So the Buddha jewel. The Buddha jewel is the ultimate place of refuge. The one who has completely satisfied both needs. So there's 2 qualities there in the Buddha jewel. They're a real protection. They're the ultimate place of refuge, right? And they have satisfied both needs. So ultimate protection, what does that mean? It means that they have reached the end of the path. They have reached the result of the path. Any form of protection which has not reached the end of the path is not an ultimate protection. A Buddha, so like, for example, an arhat is not an ultimate protection. An Arya Bodhisattva who's not a Buddha is not ultimate protection. So the second quality satisfied both needs. And this is talked about, if you come to the mixed nuts translator classes, we talked about this. This is Dharmakirti talked about this in his book on logic. They've satisfied their own needs, and they've satisfied all other beings' needs. So everything you need and everything other people need. Very famous idea. So a Buddha is one who has satisfied both needs. They've gotten everything that everybody needs. Is that true? And there's a big debate about that. I mean, obviously, a Buddha has satisfied their own needs, right? They have no need for anything. They're completely perfect being. But what about my needs? I still am a suffering being, right? I still have needs. But they say that a Buddha has fulfilled both needs, and it's something that we have to think about, and we'll talk about it in the future, but not right now. But that's the definition of the Buddha jewel. Dharma jewel. So the Buddha by himself or by herself is of no use to us, really. So there's someone who's perfect. If that person can't teach, then there's no point. Just being perfect is not enough. So that's where the Dharma comes into play. The Dharma jewel means the teachings, the words of an enlightened being. There are two types of teachings. One are the teachings in books, the teachings that are said. The second type of teaching is the teaching in your heart, in your mind. So the Dharma jewel that you are going to for protection because you are fearful of being in the realm of suffering, is of two types. And as a statement, the Dharma jewel is the enlightened side of truth, the pure side of truth, as a cessation, or as a path, as a cessation or as a path. So let's talk quickly about those two things. We can divide everything in the world into the suffering side of things or the enlightened side of things. Basically, everything in our experience is either pain of some sort or the way to get out of pain. There's only those two. On the side of the way to get out of pain, on the positive side, there are two kinds: cessations and paths. So what is a path? If you took course 1 with me, we talked about this, the 3 principal paths. Path is a realization in your mind. And the 3 principal paths were renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom, right? Those were the realization. And I don't have time to get into it in more detail. So hopefully you were in that class. So that path, that realization, any realization that can take you to full enlightenment or is on the journey to full enlightenment is a true Dharma jewel. What about cessations? Cessation just means the state of something no longer existing. So, silly example. When I was a child, I thought there was a tooth fairy. And whenever a tooth came out, you lose your baby teeth. I put it under my pillow because my parents told me the tooth fairy would come and replace my baby tooth with, I think I got something like a quarter. I'm old. A quarter was a lot of money in those days. But then as I got older, my belief in the tooth fairy ceased to exist. That belief is no longer existent. So that's all cessation is. Cessation, so talking about karma, we talked about earlier that when you first see emptiness directly, you come out of that experience, you no longer have doubt. You know that the teachings are correct. There is a cessation of doubt in the teachings. That is a state of mind that does not have doubt. Doubt is gone, vanished. So that's a cessation. So the Dharma jewel can be a path, a realization, a positive mental state, or it can be a cessation, the absence of a negative state of mind. Sangha jewel. Sangha means community, means coming together. But and it can mean a group of monastics, Sangha. But when we're talking about the Sangha jewel, it is a person who has perceived emptiness directly. Whether or not they have the wish in their heart. It's just a person who has seen emptiness directly. So when you see emptiness directly for the first time, you become two of the three jewels. You become Sangha, jewel, because you have seen emptiness directly. You have become Dharma, jewel, because you have the cessation of doubt. No, doubt can no longer appear in your mind. It's not the ultimate cessation of ignorance at that point. That comes later on. But you've also made a big dent. You've put a big, you've shaken reality. So I realized that, can I have 2 minutes? But if you have to go, it's okay to go. I just have one more thing to say. And that is about ultimate refuge. What is an ultimate refuge? And that means any refuge where the journey along the path has reached its final goal. Ultimate protection is any refuge where the journey along the path has reached its final goal. So it's the highest expression of these jewels, these three jewels that we've talked about. The Buddha, completely awakened, they have reached the final goal. They have fulfilled their own and others' needs. The Dharma jewel, the path and cessation, the highest path, the result. You've reached the result. You have the highest realizations. And cessation, for an enlightened being, the highest cessation is, cessation of every negative or obstructing thought. And then the Sangha jewel, the mind that has perceived the highest wisdom, the highest truth, the fact that things do not have a nature of being what they are from their own side. Okay. So thank you so much for letting me go on a little bit late. And my apologies to the live translators for making you talk longer than you signed up for. Thank you so much for translating. Without you, this would not be possible. Thank you all for being here. Your presence and your interest in these teachings are very inspiring to me. And if you have any questions, reach out to me in Telegram. I love you, and I'll see you on Friday.